People considered her the queen of action flicks. Pam Grier was battling conflicts that no one else knew about. Boys who should have protected her attacked her when she was 6. It happened again when she was 18. After that, Hollywood producers tried to buy her body so she could play parts in movies. She fought them all off. But in 1988, the person she hated the most wasn't a human. It was getting bigger inside her. And how she became sick would reveal a secret that will change Hollywood forever. Pam Grier was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, on May 26, 1949. Her mom, Gwendolyn, was a nurse, and her dad, Clarence, was in the Air Force. The family moved all the time because of his job. Pam felt like she never had a real home. They relocated all the way to Swindon, England, in 1956, when she was only 7. It was a weird new world. But Pam saw something that surprised her. The youngsters there didn't despise her because she was black. Later, she added, they were taught to detest Germans, not us. She remembered that moment. The family moved back to the U.S. in 1958 and lived near Denver, Colorado. But life here wasn't easy. A horrible thing happened to Pam when she was only 6 years old that would stay with her for the rest of her life. She was at her aunt's house in Swink, Colorado. There, a group of bigger boys trapped her and beat her up. With her cousin. Took her to the washroom and raped her. During the attack, a man who fixes phones came in and scared the lads away. Then they silently went back to mending the phone as if nothing had happened. Pam always remembered that. She stated it made her go from a cheerful little kid to someone who was scared of the world. She began to stutter. For years, she didn't tell anyone. She was ashamed. It happened again when I was 18. She was assaulted on a date, and the sorrow she had buried deep inside came rushing back. She didn't talk about any of this until years later when she wrote her memoir. Pam had to deal with another harsh reality in the early 1960s. Racism in the United States. People in England hardly noticed her skin hue. But things were different in Denver. Buses wouldn't stop for them. Places to eat. Sent them go. Someone told Pam that the swimming pool was only for white people. In 1969, she and her dad still couldn't try on clothes in some stores. They made it apparent that they weren't wanted, but Pam had strong roots. Her mother's family had escaped slavery by using the Underground Railroad and had achieved freedom in Wyoming. Pam's tale of survival provided her resilience and helped her choose strong roles in movies later on. Pam entered the Miss Colorado Universe pageant in 1967 when she was 18. She didn't do it to become famous, she did it to help pay for college. She needed the money because she was going to school at Metropolitan State College. She didn't come in first, but she did make it to the top of the finalists. At the time, that was a significant deal for a girl of mixed race. Someone at the pageant saw her and gave her a contact in Hollywood, which was even more crucial. That was how she acquired her first agency. Soon after, she was singing backup for Stevie Wonder and Sly Stone. She even saw Jimi Hendrix make a record. She packed her stuff and moved to Los Angeles that year. But living in LA wasn't all that great. It was difficult. She didn't have any money. She didn't know anyone. She got a job at a casting agency switchboard by lying and learned how to use the phone system right away. She had to work more than one job to stay alive. She was a receptionist and a hostess. Even a naked model for students of art. Sometimes they only ate one meal a day and slept for a few hours at night. From 1967 to 1970, she had more than 40 jobs. She was doing everything she could to stay alive while going after her aspirations. When Pam was at school in Denver, it was hard for her since she was mixed. Black, Hispanic, Filipino, Chinese, and Cheyenne. She didn't look like anyone else. Kids picked on her and called her names. Even hit her. She therefore signed up for self-defense classes. She learned martial arts not just to fight back, but also to feel strong again. Later, those skills formed part of her character on screen. In movies, she wasn't acting harsh. She really was. She made a brave choice in 1968 when she was only 19. She called the Hollywood agent from the pageant and told him she was ready. She moved into a small 200-square-foot apartment with only $200 in her pocket. With two other girls. She got her start in acting in the 1970 cult movie Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, where she was an uncredited extra. She only made $25, but she spent those long days watching and learning from the real actors. It turned into her acting school, but the system wasn't made for someone like her. She only got parts in 1969 and 1970 that played on stereotypes, such tribeswomen and exotic villains. Dancers in the background. The money was awful, and the jobs were even worse. In early 1970, everything changed when producer Roger Corman saw her at a party. He was impressed by how tall and strong she was. He asked her to be in a new movie called The Big Dollhouse. Knew it was her time. She worked hard to become ready, spending hours each day practicing martial arts and weapons. She even put on 15 pounds of muscle. This time, she was prepared. But just when things were starting to look good, calamity struck. That same year, a famous Hollywood producer asked her to meet with him. He told her straight out, "If you don't sleep with me, you won't get the part." Pam said no. He tried to hurt her, and she had to beat him off with her body. She thought about resigning and heading back to Denver. She said she would leave Hollywood, but she didn't. She didn't leave. The fire inside her was getting greater. After that, every job she had was a method for her to fight back. In 1971, her part in The Big Dollhouse became a big sensation. The movie generated $10 million at the box office, even though it only cost $125,000 to make. She played a tough inmate who did her own stunts, such a mud wrestling scene that took 3 days to film in knee-deep water. When a storm wrecked the set. Roger Corman said that the movie turned out to be hotter and more raw than he had expected, yet it was a huge hit. It started Pam's career and a whole new type of movie about women in prison. In Women in Cages, she played a nasty warden that same year. It was very violent and caused a lot of debate. She tortured other characters in scenarios that went beyond far for most people to handle. Pam later remarked that she wasn't proud of the nude scenes. She thought she had been deceived. Exploited, but the part she played made her stand out. People couldn't stop looking at her. She was in the Big Bird cage in 1972. She was a rebel who planned to break out of jail using actual guerrilla tactics that former fighters in the Philippines taught her. The action scenes were exciting and sometimes scary. A prisoner was crushed under a bamboo mill in one incident. The movie seemed real because some of it was actual. Pam wasn't just playing a role. She was doing her own stunts. And training for real. In 1973, she was in the movie Scream Blackula Scream. She played Lisa, a voodoo priestess who could break a vampire's curse. Worked hard to make the character powerful instead of just another fearful woman in a horror movie. She wouldn't do nude sequences and insisted that the voodoo parts be treated with care. Pam's character stood her ground, even though the vampire still had most of the power in the plot. Pam Grier became famous that same year. She played a nurse in Coffee who became a vigilante when drugs killed her sister. The movie cost $125,000 to make and made between $2 million and $1 million. Pam came up with one of the craziest parts of the movie on her own. She put razor blades in her hair and utilized them in a fight scene. It was frightening, real, and hard to forget. That one scene came to stand for everything Pam stood for. Brave and daring. And can't be stopped. Wasn't just acting like a hero. She was one. Pam Grier never played it safe. People weren't ready for what they witnessed when Foxy Brown came out in 1974. One scene in particular shocked others. Her character didn't merely get back at someone. She made sure it hurt. Pam's character told someone to do something terrible when they caught the man who killed her boyfriend. She cut off his testicles. Then she gave his girlfriend the rest of him in a glass jar. It wasn't a trick. Done by someone else. She planned the whole event herself. She wanted it to be real. It works. Foxy Brown made almost $4 million from that scene. But it did more than that, it changed what women could do in action movies. She was not a victim. People were afraid of her. She filmed The Arena that same year, where she portrayed a gladiator. She practiced with real swords, got hit, and suffered bruises. And kept on going. She got hurt in a crazy chariot chase. But Pam wasn't the type of actor who ran away from hardship. She leaned toward it. She worked with Margaret Markoff for the second time on the movie, which cost under $75,000. It wasn't just a film. It showed that Pam could live through anything, even in ancient Rome. She was in Shiva, Baby in 1975. She played a private eye who fought the mob using her real karate talents. Even though there was a lot of action in the movie, it didn't do well. People were starting to lose interest in blaxploitation movies. People labeled it Pam Grier light because it wasn't as violent or edgy as Foxy Brown. It seemed too clean and safe. People didn't want that from her. Friday Foster came out later that year. During a crazy vehicle pursuit, Pam drove her own car. She played a photographer who becomes a detective and gets caught up in a conspiracy to kill someone. It wasn't merely a scary movie. It had something to say. It demonstrated that black leaders were being attacked. It was about the future and coming together. She worked with American International Pictures on her last movie. She wasn't only shooting firearms anymore. She was also thinking. She also played Aretha in Bucktown in 1975. She stood up to crooked cops in a small town. During filming, she made up a phrase on women's rights on the spot. It wasn't in the script, but test audiences loved it so much that they kept it in. It revealed how strong Pam's presence was. Her remarks were important even when she wasn't reading from the script. That movie was one of her final huge hits before the era of blaxploitation came to an end. Things changed after that. She had a quite different part in Fort Apache, the Bronx, in 1981. She was Charlotte, a heroin addict who works as a prostitute and kills cops. It was dark and scary. Paul Newman was on the screen with her and made $3 million. And 15% of the movie's proceeds. Pam's portion was little, yet it stuck with me. People who didn't like her said she was creepy. That part demonstrated she could go deep and dark, but it also made her look like a damaged woman instead of a hero. She was in a Disney movie called Something Wicked This Way Comes in 1983. She was the Witch of Dust. But Disney got scared when test audiences didn't like it. They paid $4 million to make the movie again. Pam's scenes were either edited down or taken out completely. 5 months after it was supposed to come out, the movie did. Disney was afraid to put a black lady in a dream role. They said the audience was to fault. But the truth was that Hollywood didn't want ladies like Pam in fantasy novels. It broke my heart. She found a new home on TV between 1985 and 1989. She played Valerie Gordon, a detective from New York, on Miami Vice. Her military upbringing and her family's history gave her a lot of real-life experience for the job. She wasn't just pretending to be tough, she really was. Her plots were rough and generally had to do with her lost sister and dishonest diplomats. She was both strong and weak at the same time. That part helped her keep her career going during a hard time. She also began directing plays at UCLA around this time. She worked for Roman Polanski and tried to learn as much as she could. She put on an all-black rendition of Frankie and Johnny to prove that black actors could play any role. Pam didn't care what the reviews said. She was learning how to be in charge. Her love life had always been hard. She went out with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the early 1970s, when he was still known as Louis Sindor. He wanted her to become a Muslim, wear a headscarf, and stop being independent. She said no. In 1973, they split up. She met Freddie Prinze in 1973, a few years later. He was 19 years old and already a big star, but he was not steady. He called her before he killed himself in 1977. She tried to get him to stop, but he hung up. He died a few hours later. She always felt bad about it. Richard Pryor came next. They began dating in 1975. He was pleasant and smart, but he couldn't stop doing cocaine. During a visit to the doctor, I learned something terrible. There was cocaine left over in her body. He had sent it. She stood up to him. He didn't think it was important. She broke up with him in 1976, but that wasn't the end. In 1980, she went to the set of Stir Crazy and saw him freebasing cocaine. She begged him to stop. He said no. A few months later, he caught fire again while freebasing. She wasn't shocked. She knew it was going to happen. She also had a brief relationship with Wilt Chamberlain. Years later, he wrote about their meeting in his book, saying he had slept with 20,000 women. He told her private things without her permission. She was very angry. She said it was taking advantage of people. No one asked her how it felt to be on a list like that. Pam Grier was 39 years old and at the top of her game in 1988. She was in good shape, active, and led a healthy life. Every day, she ran 6 miles, didn't eat meat, and remained away from drugs and alcohol. She believed things was going well. She was thinking about her future, looking at houses, and planning to get married and have kids. Then one phone call altered everything. What she thought was a normal checkup became something scary. The doctors told her she had cervical cancer in stage 4. It's not stage 1 or 2, it's stage 4. They told her she only had 16 to 18 months to live. They gave her a huge folder full of medical paperwork and ordered her to start writing her will. They couldn't even start the treatment straight away, because her body needed time to heal from the shock of surgery. She had to deal with the news for 6 weeks as the cancer spread. She didn't take a break from work. That made it much more startling. She was working on Above the Law with Steven Seagal when she heard the news, but she kept going. She never told the people who worked for her. She had wigs on. She lost a lot of weight. She kept going through rigorous chemotherapy. Kept smiling and performing. Pam used everything she had learned to deal with the pain without becoming addicted on narcotics because her mom had been a nurse. That required a lot of strength, but the emotional suffering was even worse. The man she loved didn't even come to her first chemotherapy appointment. Then he was gone for 5 years. He just went. She had to battle for her life all by herself. She later commented that cancer shows you who your true friends are. And for her, that was a really hard lesson. Things got worse. Krista, her sister, died of breast cancer in 1990, when she was still fighting cancer. Pam cared for her like a genuine sister. Pam always thought Krista's disease was caused by hazardous chemicals from years of flying because Krista had worked as a flight attendant. The anguish didn't stop there. Freddie, Krista's kid, couldn't bear the loss. He killed himself not long after his mother died. Freddie had tried to get in touch with Pam before he died, but she was terrified since he had threatened her. She couldn't stop thinking about how she didn't meet him. She fell to the ground at a hotel when she found out what had happened, crying as the police surrounded the area. Pam was still struggling for her life through all of this. Then something that wasn't planned happened. She was watching a program called Healing in the Mind with Bill Moyers one night in her house in the San Fernando Valley. It depicted a Chinese woman with a big tumor on her back. The tumor was gone after weeks of acupuncture, herbs, pressure therapy, and meditation. Pam saw that as a sign. She chose to use both Eastern medicine and chemotherapy. Her doctor took her to a Chinese herbalist, who gave her some unique herbs. He urged her to take hot tea with her meals to purify her body. She added yoga to her routine. She did everything with strict military rigor. She thought that being outside, breathing fresh air, and drinking clean water helped her get well. Her body slowly started to fight back. One day, the physicians told her something that shocked everyone. She was in remission. That was over 35 years ago, and she's still alive. She became a cancer awareness ambassador, pushing for early checks and encouraging others that when you fight with everything you've got, miracles can happen. But the worst wound was not on her body. It was in her heart. She started therapy years after beating cancer. That's when the truth really came out. She had been in pain since she was 6 years old. At that time, a bunch of boys sexually abused her. Then again at 18 by someone she knew she could trust. She had never talked about it before. She kept everything to herself. But it all came out in therapy. The anguish. The pain. She had been dealing with PTSD for years, but all of a sudden it made sense. The difficult personalities she played on screen weren't just roles, they were how she stayed alive. They were her protection. Every strong lady she played was a part of her. Fighting, staying alive, and safeguarding what was remained of her soul. In her book Foxy, My Life in 3 Acts, she said that the brave image people admired came from true pain. It was never just acting, it was her truth. Pam Grier had a significant event in 1996. She had been stuck in modest TV roles and declining movie appearances for years when she suddenly appeared in Tim Burton's weird sci-fi comedy Mars Attacks. She played Louise Williams, a mother who drives a bus and is struggling to stay alive during an invasion by Martians. She was next to actors like Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, and Pierce Brosnan. It cost $80 million to make the movie, and it was shot all over the world, from California to Argentina. It only made $101 million globally, but it brought Pam Grier back into the spotlight after a lengthy time away. That return opened the door to something else. Things changed in 1997. That year, Quentin Tarantino made a movie exclusively for her. He turned the book Rum Punch into Jackie Brown and changed the main character to accommodate Pam Grier. He didn't want a white actress like in the novel, he wanted her. And she did. She played a flight attendant who brought money into the US and out of Mexico. But the tale wasn't the only thing that made her so strong in the role. Tarantino paid tribute to her reputation from the 1970s, when she reigned the screens in Coffee and Foxy Brown. Jackie Brown produced $74 million on a budget of $12 million, and Pam was nominated for a Golden Globe. The critics loved her. Robert Forster, who was her co-star, even garnered an Oscar nomination. And just like that, people stopped forgetting about her. She had come back. She kept it going in 1998. She played Eleanor Winthrop, the clever and tough head of a political party for children's rights, on the Showtime show Lynx. The show took place in a bar in D.C. and included funny parts, with important issues like race, poverty, and the law. Pam used her real-life advocacy to make the part more than just acting. The show was on the air until early 2000 and got 5 nominations. She saw it as another proof that she could switch between action, drama, and sharp comedy without losing her edge. She was everywhere in 1999. In the teen movie Jawbreaker, she played Detective Vera Cruz, who was after a group of high school kids, keeping a fatal secret. The movie was somber, but it also had a lighthearted tone, like Heathers. Even though the movie was silly, she made the plot feel real. In the same year, she also played a talking nightingale in the animated series Happily Ever After. The segment taught kids about how beautiful they are on the inside. It proved that she could still touch people's hearts, even when she wasn't on screen. Then followed Holy Smoke, a drama directed by Jane Campion that is known for the piano. Pam acted with Kate Winslet and Harvey Keitel. It wasn't loud or flashy, but it was deep and artistic. And it revealed once again that Pam Grier was meant to be in important movies. She didn't slow down until the 2000s came. She played prosecutor Claudia Williams on Law and Order, SVU from 2002 to 2004. It wasn't a big part for her, but it was strong. She was nominated for 2 NAACP awards for it, which shows how good her performance was. Around this time, she got one of her most emotional TV performances ever. Showtime started airing The L Word in 2004. Pam played Kit Porter, Bette Porter's older sister. Kit was heterosexual, had a drinking problem, worked in music, and was always trying to be the rock for her sister's pals. Her story was about love, sobriety, and heartbreak over 6 seasons. One of her most emotional sequences was when she said no to a marriage proposal. She remarked that the individuals she loved the most couldn't even get married in a legal way. That line said a lot. Pam played Kit until the show concluded in 2009. She couldn't join when the relaunch came out years later. She was already started making another movie. She played Constance Terry in the comedy Bless This Mess in 2019. The show was about a couple that moved from New York City to Nebraska. Pam was the sheriff and business owner in the town. She contributed strength, charisma, and humor to the part. She also acted in a movie that startled a lot of people that same year. It was called Palms, and she played Olive, a 70-year-old woman who joins a cheerleading squad in a retirement facility. And sure, she did dance. She did real cheer routines on TV. Some people believed the story was too predictable, but Pam's energy was amazing. She proved that age didn't matter. Not at all. In 2010, she wrote a memoir called Foxy, My Life in 3 Acts that described her whole tale. It surprised readers and sold more than 100,000 copies. She talked about traumatic things that happened to her as a child, like being gang raped at age 6 and sexually molested at age 18. She also talked about her connection with Richard Pryor and how his drug usage hurt her health and her emotions. It hurt, to be honest, but it was strong. A biopic called Pam started to move forward because of that novel. Pam heard Jay Farrowa's impersonation of Richard Pryor and stated, "It's Richard." Benny Richburg wrote the script, which was called Raw and Heartbreaking. Studios were still looking at it at the moment, but the proposal had already caused a stir. Jackie Brown was nominated for 16 awards, however she never got an Oscar nomination. IndieWire said in 2016 that she was one of the best actors who had never been nominated for an Academy Award. That hurt, especially when many said it was like John Travolta's for Pulp Fiction. In Tarantino movies, both actors played roles that brought them back to life, but only the white actor was recognized. Halle Berry remarked that Pam Grier was the reason her career happened. That says it all. Then there were the made-up stories. Some people said she couldn't be on the show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air after a guest spot in 1994. It was all a lie. She played the part of Janice Robertson and did what she was supposed to do. There was no drama, but clickbait videos with names like Pam Grier Band kept spreading the suspicions. What is the truth? She filmed her parts. She went away. That's all. During the Me Too campaign, one of the worst portions of her tale came to light. In 2018, she talked about how she turned down Harvey Weinstein in the 1970s. A long time before he lost power. She had met him through Jackie Brown, which Miramax put out. She lost a part in a large Amazon show with Robert De Niro and Julianne Moore because Weinstein's revelations caused the project to go apart. But she didn't keep quiet. She told Ted how to deal with cancer and rape. She used her voice to protect, warn, and give others strength. She hasn't faded away yet. She went on the Jennifer Hudson Show in May 2024, when she was 76 years old, and talked about a crazy thing that happened on the set of her 2001 movie Bones with Snoop Dogg. She smiled and continued, "Let me tell you, he can kiss." Then she started to laugh. Snoop once said that meeting her made him pass out in the bathroom. That kind of effect lasts forever. They had been buddies for more than 20 years.